All right. Good morning. Good morning. It's been a couple months since I've done this, so I'm going to go ahead and get started, and going to start with Matthew 5. That's we're going to hang out. This is part one of what I'm going to do. I might break this into three different parts. I'm not certain. Um, I'm wanting to delve into what Yeshua said in Matthew 5, the Sermon on the Mount. What was it that he was teaching? What was his purpose? What was really going on? And what did he really say? That's the key. What did he really say? So I'm going to read large chunks of it and then go over it more like a teaching than a preaching. You know. So if you'll bear with me, we're going to start in verse 3. That's where he begins speaking. Well, verse 2 just says he opens his mouth. Then verse 3 says, "Blessed are the poor in the spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see Elohim, or God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when they revile and persecute you, and say all kinds of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven. So they persecuted the prophets who were before you." So this blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those. Blessed. The one is the blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. So what is righteousness? Righteousness is right standing with the Father. That is what righteousness is. So those who hunger and thirst for it, and they will be filled. How are you filled with righteousness? Well, we'll just keep going. Just going to ask a few questions. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are the pure heart. Blessed are the merciful. Blessed are the persecuted, those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake. Well, who are persecuted for righteousness' sake? Who would be persecuted for that? Those obviously those who are hungry and thirsty for it, who want righteousness. And so it begs the question: what is righteousness? What is that right standing? And now, do you obtain how do you get that right standing? There's a lot of differences of opinions. Most of the opinions is that we have the righteousness of Christ, of Messiah. And well, where do you get that from? It comes from 2 Corinthians. Let's go visit that real quick. I'm not going to stay on this too long. First Corinthians chapter 5, verse 17 says that therefore if anyone's in Messiah, he is a new creation. Old things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new. And then he goes on to say that he who made him know no sin to be sin for us, that we might become the righteousness in Elohim, in him, in the Messiah. So they say that we have the righteousness of Messiah. What was his righteousness? What was his right standing? How is righteousness obtained? I'm just going to leave that. I'm not going to say it. I'm just going to ask that question. How is it obtained? We just see that in 2 Corinthians, and we see that those who hunger and thirst for it, and then we also see blessed are those who are persecuted because of it. So what is this righteousness? What is that? Where does it come from? How do you get it? How are we going to be that righteousness in the Messiah? I say we keep reading Matthew. Let's do that. You are the salt of the earth. So now he's talking about blessed are those who revile and persecute, when they revile and persecute you, say all kinds of evil against you falsely, rejoice and exceedingly be glad, for great is your reward in heaven, for they persecuted the prophets who were before you. You are the salt of the earth. So this is the people who are persecuted for righteousness' sake. You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its flavor, how shall it be seasoned? It is then good for nothing, but to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by men. You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify the Father in heaven. So again, these are the people who hunger and thirst for righteousness. He's saying are the ones who are the salt of the earth. They are the light of the world. We can do all kinds of word plays and word lookups for light. What is light and what is salt? And what's it mean to lose your flavor? What is it to have full flavor? And he says you don't put a lamp and put it under a basket, but you put it on, so for to light up the room, to light up the world. And he says, let your light shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. Glorify your Father in heaven. Your good works. So what is it that's shining? What is it that's giving off that light? Because he says, so let your light shine before men that they may see your good works. You're to be clothed in righteousness. And these are the ones who are persecuted for righteousness' sake. These are the ones who are hungry and thirsty for righteousness. What is righteousness? What is this light? What are these good works? Let's keep reading. He literally says that. He says, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. Do not think I came to destroy the law or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For surely I say to you, till heaven and earth pass away, not one jot or one tittle will by no means pass from the law till all is fulfilled. Whoever therefore breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches men so shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven, but whoever does and teaches them shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Salt of the earth, light of the world, light so shine before men that they may see your good works. I didn't come to destroy the law and the prophets. Whoever breaks one of the least of the commandments and teaches men so are least in the kingdom of heaven, but whoever does and teaches them, he shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. So I'm going to look here in Matthew, first chapter, no red words. Second chapter, no red words. Red words are the words of Messiah. Chapter 3, he's baptized. Chapter 4, he's in the wilderness and he's tempted. And there he says, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of Elohim or God. You shall not tempt the Lord your God. Away with you, Satan, for it is written, your God, and him you shall only him you shall serve. Verse 17. repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Then he tells some guys to follow him. And then the first teaching he does, he says, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake. You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. You also let your light so shine so that your good works may be seen and glorify the Father. Don't think I came to destroy the law of the prophets. Whoever breaks these commands and teaches, least whoever does and teaches these commandments will be called great. Interesting. A lot of interesting stuff there. A couple months ago, I talked about how will we judge? How will we be judged? And sounds a lot like we're going to be judged according to our works, according to what you have done. So the first message that Yeshua, Jesus, teaches, he starts right out talking about righteousness. Those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. And then he goes on to say that whoever breaks the least of these commandments and teaches men so shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven, but whoever does and teaches them shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. What are these commandments? I've heard teaching say, well, he goes on to talk about these commandments, and it's only what he's listed here. But he says, don't think I came to destroy the law and the prophets. This is his first teaching right here that we have recorded in book of Matthew. Matthew did a great job of he did some shorthand and some good work as this message was being broadcast. So if he says he didn't come to destroy the law and the prophets, and he goes on to talk about whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments, could it be that he's talking about law and commandments? This is Yeshua. This is Jesus. He is a Jew. He was born to Jewish parents. Matter of fact, in Matthew chapter 1, it proves the lineage that he was born through the lineage of that King David. And it just shows where he comes through the tribe of Judah. We also have over in Luke, we also have or was it John, where we have the record of him going into the temple and teaching with the Pharisees, with the priests. And they were amazed at how much he knew. So we know he understands and knows the law and the prophets. We know that the book of Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans, Corinthians, Galatians, Colossians, none of the New Testament was compiled. In fact, the Apostle Paul wasn't even in this picture. He wasn't even in the picture here. All right. So, and if he was, you know what he was? He was a Pharisee of Pharisees. So we have this Jewish man who begins teaching. And he's teaching Jewish people. What is he teaching when he says, those who hunger and thirst for righteousness? What's he talking about? What would their ears have heard when he said that word or that phrase? What would their ears have heard when he said the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its flavor? What would their ears have been hearing when he said, you are the light of the world? What would their ears have heard when he said, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven? What did they hear? Not what do you hear? What did a preacher tell you? What did you go to Bible school and learn? What did they hear? It's important to understand. because his message had meaning to them. And for us to just say, well, it's got meaning for me and this is what it is, that's not right. We need to know what it meant to them when he said, do not think that I came to destroy the law and the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to fulfill. What did that mean to them? Whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches men so shall be called least. Whoever does and teaches them, he shall be called great. What did that mean to those in the crowd? What did it mean to his disciples? Let's jump into the word fulfill in verse 17. And I think it's going to make complete sense. I once did a study on this, and I really started digging and looking up the words. And I looked up Greek and I looked up the Hebrew. And it says, do not think that I came to destroy the law and the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to fulfill. When I looked it up in the Blue Letter Bible or anything online, you come to the conclusion that word there is pleroo, P-E-L-R-O-O. And that would be the root word for the actual word that's used right here. The actual Greek word that's used right here is plerosai, P-E-L-O-R-A-S-A-I, plero, R-O-S-A-I, plerosai. That word is used one other time in Scripture. Let's see here. Romans chapter 15, verse 19. I have the complete biblical library, which breaks down the entire New Testament, entire Old Testament, everything, word by word, Greek and Hebrew. And it just breaks everything down, gives you whole pages of what each word means. So here in Romans 15, verse 19, it's the same Greek word, plerosai, and I'm going to read verse 18, 19, and 20, so you get an idea here. He says, for I will declare, I will not dare to speak of any of those things which Messiah has not accomplished through me in word and deed to make the Gentiles obedient. Make the Gentiles obedient. That's an interesting phrase. In mighty signs and wonders by the power of the Spirit of Elohim, so that from Jerusalem, the roundabout to that place, I have fully preached the gospel of Messiah. And so I have made it my aim to preach the gospel, not where Christ was named, but lest I should build on another man's foundation. So the word plerosai, which is translated fulfill in Matthew 5:17, here is translated as the phrase, I have fully preached the gospel of Messiah. I have fully preached. So fully preach is one way of translating the Greek word plerosai, and here they chose fulfill. In many translations, it just says complete. I have a real hard time with that definition. Now you say, well, are you an interpreter of the Bible? No. Am I a scholar? What defines that? I'm not concerned with. Am I a man who has the capability of searching and diligently learning? Yes. So the Greek word here is plerosai, period. In Romans, we see where it's translated plerosai as fully preach. I'll just put that in here. I did not come to destroy, but to fully preach. Let's just say that. And then in verse 19, for whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches men so shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven, but whoever does and teaches them, he shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Well, who's the greatest of us all? Is it not the Messiah? So what did he do then? According to this, if you read it that way, do not think I came to destroy the law and the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to fully preach. And then he says, the whoever does and teaches them, he shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Who's the greatest? He is. He is. So, it makes all the sense in the world. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works. I did not come to destroy the law and the prophets, but to fully preach. And whoever does and teaches them, he shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I say to you that unless your righteousness, there's that word again, righteousness, exceeds the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, you will by no means enter the kingdom of heaven. What is righteousness? I know in its most basic form it means to be in right standing with the Father. So what is righteousness? What does that mean? Well, according to the Old Testament, the law and commandments, which is also known as the Torah, we find that righteousness is what happens when you are in obedience to his laws and his commandments. That is righteousness. Now, again, we are speaking to a group of people. Yeshua, Jesus, is speaking to a group of people, Jewish people, who only knew the Torah. They didn't have any New Testament. They didn't even know that he was Messiah at the time. They didn't have the opportunity to believe or disbelieve, because this is his first time standing up and teaching, preaching, and saying, listen, blessed are those who are poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are the hungry for righteousness and thirsty for righteousness. Blessed. And he's teaching. These are people who are blessed. So, what do these Jewish people believe here in this crowd about being blessed? Well, another thing, we're talking about what he's teaching. He's teaching that blessed are this group of people. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake. Blessed, 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 merciful, peacemakers, pure in heart. Who are these people? What is he talking about? What are they hearing? These people, I'll tell you right now, they are certainly hearing a man who's telling them that blessed are those who are obedient to the law and commandments. Yes. That is what they hear. I'm telling you, that's what they hear. They're hearing that. Blessed are you when you hunger and thirst for righteousness. What they heard is blessed is a person who hunger and thirsts for obedience to the law and commandments. And let's continue. You're the salt of the earth. Well, they heard the word salt of the earth. That means that the ones who are salty are in that covenant. And if you're in that covenant, if you're not in a broken covenant, but you're in that covenant, that means that those people are obedient to the laws and the commandments. You are the light of the world. A city set on the hill cannot be hidden. Well, what did they hear when he said, you are the light of the world? When he said that, go into the book of Proverbs and read it. He talks about your law as a lamp and a light to my feet, a lamp continuously. Time and time again, you will hear that phrase in the book of Proverbs. So what did they hear? You're the light of the world. That means to them, because your light so shine before men, in verse 16, that they may see your good works and glorify the Father in heaven. What were those good works? What was that light? I didn't come to destroy the law and the prophets. I came to fully preach. For surely I say to you, not one jot or one tittle will by any means pass from the law till all is fulfilled. All is done. I'd venture to say that it all hasn't been done yet. Because heaven and earth have not passed away. And then whoever breaks one of the least and teaches, least in the kingdom. Whoever teaches them shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Who's the greatest of us all? Who's the greatest teacher of us all? Not me. Our Messiah. For I say to you that unless your righteousness exceeds the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, you will by no means enter into the kingdom of heaven. Wow. What were the law, Pharisees and Sadducees? What was the scribes and Pharisees? Who were they? They were the law keepers, the law teachers. And he says, well, number one, he calls them hypocrites time and time and time again. Why? Because they were teaching and then they weren't doing. I'm going to jump over to Matthew 23 real quick. This is a huge chapter and evidence of this here. Matthew 23, verses 1, 2, and 3. He says, well, in verse chapter, Yeshua, Jesus, spoke to the multitudes and to his disciples. The scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. Ooh, that's very important to know and understand what Moses' seat was. Therefore, whatever they tell you to observe, that observe and do, but do not do according to their works, for they say and do not do. They are hypocrites. That's what he was saying they were. They were not only teaching from the law and commandments, but they were also teaching from their man-made doctrines. That's plenty of other places where he talks about that. But here he says, don't do what they don't act like them. Let me put it that way. Don't act like them. What is this Moses' seat? The scribes and Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. What is that? So if you go back to the book of Ezra, we find out where this tradition came from. They'd been long without, they've been in exile. They've finally rebuilt the temple, and they finally found some of the scrolls, and Ezra has opened them up and started reading the scrolls. He's started reading the Torah, and the people all hear it, and they all weep and cry, and they repent. It's a great story. Moses' seat is where Ezra began this, where they would walk up to like a podium, like in church today, walk up to a podium, they'd pull out the scroll, and they'd read a portion from the Torah, the Old Testament law and commandments. And then he'd step away from that, and he would explain what he just read. That's the seat of Moses. And what does Yeshua, what does Jesus say there in 23:1? So he's saying they sit in the seat of Moses. They read from the Torah, from the law and commandments. And he says, what in verse 3? Therefore, whatever they tell you to observe, that observe and do. But do not do according to their works. For they say and do not do, because their works were what? Evil. We know he called their works evil because they would say, they would read it and they'd talk about it, and then they wouldn't do it. That's hypocrites, hypocritical. I could go into Matthew 23 and be there as well, but we're going to be Matthew chapter 5 first. And we've just got this first portion here. And so we've got Matthew 23, and now we've got in Matthew 5, two different places where he has told the people that he did in this one to fully preach the law and the prophets. He came because he's going to be the greatest teacher, and he's going to be great in the kingdom. Because if he was teaching men to break those commandments and that then he would be called least in the kingdom. We know he's not least. He's great. And he told them that blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. And unless your righteousness exceeds the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, you will by no means enter the kingdom. So, how does the rest of Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7, the Sermon on the Mount, continue to teach along these lines? Does he? Or does it prove that I am absolutely wrong? Let's see. Verse 21. You have heard that it was said of those of old, you shall not murder, and whoever murders will be in danger of judgment. But I say that whoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whoever says to his brother, Raka, shall be in danger of the council. But whoever says, you fool, shall be in danger of hellfire. Therefore, if you bring your gift to the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar. Go your way. First, be reconciled to your brother, and then come and offer your gift. Huh. So he says, you've heard it said, you shall not murder. He didn't say, oh, no, that's not a commandment anymore. He said, let me explain that even more, because he said he's going to fully preach. Did he say he was changing it? No. Did he say he was up in it? No. He said he's fully preaching it. He is fully explaining what it means to not murder. Because if you read, the law and commandments, you've got the greatest two commandments. You should love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. And you should love your neighbor as yourself. On those two commandments hang the 10 commandments. You shall have no other gods. You shall not have any idols, any carved images. You shall observe the Sabbath day and keep it holy. And you shall not profane his name. You should not take his name in vain. That's a whole nother story too. We get into that teaching. And then over here, you don't murder, don't commit adultery, don't steal, don't bear false witness. I feel like I skipped one. Those are all so short. And then one in between, what is it? Honor your father and mother. Respect your father and mother, that it may be well with you, and that you may have long life. So that honor your father and mother is the segue between the love the Lord your God and love your neighbor. All right? When you can do that, you can do the other two, or you're showing the other two as well. And that's how you learn. And off of those commandments there's a lot of Torah commandments. Matter of fact, they put it together, compile a list, and they say it's 613. Yeah, there could be. A lot of them are repeated. Most of them, matter of fact, I'd say all of them are repeated at some point. So this here, he's just fully preaching and fully teaching what he already knows is contained in that law and commandments within the guidelines of what falls under you shall not murder. That's what this is. This isn't him redefining it, changing it, upping the bar. No, this is him fully explaining what's already written. And then again, he goes on, you have heard that said that you shall not commit adultery. I say that whoever looks at a woman and lusts for her has already committed adultery. Again, this is fully explaining, not raising the bar, not changing it. This is going back to what's already contained in what is already written. And then he says, don't divorce. But that was written because of the hardness of your hearts. Then he goes on to say, and you have heard that it was said of old, you shall not swear falsely, but you shall perform your oaths. I say, do not swear at all. So the commandment's given. So if you do, these are the guidelines, and they're pretty strict, actually. If you actually go back and read the Torah commandments, the Old Testament law and commandments that talk about swearing or performing, making an oath, they're pretty strict. It's like, listen, if you say it, you better do it. And he's saying it's better, just don't do it at all. And he says, you've heard it, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Well, that's a pretty tough one. There's multiple times it's said. And does that mean that you just picked up someone poked out your eye, so you just go pick up a stick and start jabbing and getting rid of their eye? No. So number one, you've got to understand and know when you're even talking about the Old Testament law and commandments is that there was from the very beginning, before he gave the 10 commandments in Exodus 18, Moses, his father-in-law, comes up and he talks to him. He sees that he's there with people, after people waiting to come see him so he can judge. And Jethro said, like, hey, listen, what you're doing ain't good. You need to break it down, and you need to have, one person over this group, and one over thousands, one over 10 hundreds, one over 50s, one over 10s. And so you can break this down, and then the hard matters can come to you, Moses. What you're doing isn't good. So in other words, he broke it into, he had judges and groups of people or at least one guy that would be able to judge things righteously. It wasn't, you could never take matters into your own hand. If you did, you were guilty of breaking the law and commandments. You're breaking the law, just like here in the United States. Someone can't just, be going down the street and walk up and yell at you or and then you take things in your own hand and go up there and just whack them. You can't do that. Someone hit you, on accident in their car, and you get, maybe your son's neck gets injured or something, and you go back there and you just hit me. Take matters into your own hands. You can't do that. You've got to go to the courts. It's the same thing in here. In the Old Testament law and commandments, that's where it was, initially brought forth right there. There were judges. So eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Yeah, that's according to judgment. But there's more involved with that as well. And then he says, you have heard it said in verse 43, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. What? But that is not contained within the Torah commandments. That, again, is something that they had passed on. Hate your enemy, that's not part of the Old Testament law and commandments. It was love your neighbor. He said, I say to you, love your enemy. Bless those who curse you. Do not say, again, he's explaining, fully preaching what was already written. He's not coming up with a new standard or a new guideline or changing anything here. He's fully explaining what was already written. And he ends chapter 5. There's not an ending. He's continuing. And he says, for if you love those who love you, what reward? And if you greet your brethren, what do you do more than others? Verse 48 is huge. He says, he's talking. I've talked for, I don't know what, 30 minutes already, 40 minutes. He only talked probably about 10 minutes, if that. And he says, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Blessed are you when they persecute you and revile you. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake. You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. Let your light so shine that your good works may glorify the Father in heaven. Don't think I came to destroy the law and the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to fully preach. And he says, but whoever does and teaches these laws and commandments, he shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. And then he goes on and says, therefore you shall be perfect, just as your Father in heaven is perfect. Well, be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. He didn't say be perfect as I am perfect. He didn't say be perfect as Moses was perfect. He didn't say be perfect as whatever your preacher says is perfect. He says be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. How do we obtain that perfection? Is it possible? Because I've been told most of my life that it's not possible. But he tells us that we need to do it. Well, we're going to read chapter 6 and go over that next week. And chapter 7, I don't know how much we'll do of both of those next week. We'll see. But again, this is one sermon. This is part 1. Next week will be part 2. We might have part 3. Not certain. But we'll see. But right now, I'm going to end it with that. The statement that says, you shall be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. This is Yeshua, Messiah, Jesus Christ, calling you out, telling you to be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. I'll end it there. Y'all be blessed, be good, and hey, you better be perfect. See you guys next time. Be blessed. Thank you.